In this episode of One to One, I have a conversation with Andre Riley, CRO and Head of Growth at Arcade. We discuss how employee engagement plays a pivotal role in improving customer experience and how businesses can foster an engaging work culture. Andre, thanks for joining us today. Before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at the company and how Arcade strives to make a difference in the workplace culture?
Yeah, absolutely. I am the Chief Revenue Officer here at Arcade and also Head of Growth. I focus on helping the overall growth of our business and expanding our reach out there. Here at Arcade, we are a performance engagement solution that integrates directly with businesses' core solutions and creating and driving engagement, increasing productivity, and driving culture utilizing gamification.
And so I see the sign over your shoulder there around Mamba mentality. How does that kind of play in the overall culture that you're trying to really build at Arcade?
I'm glad you kind of point that out, but it's definitely a huge mantra of mine. For those of you guys that don't know, the Mamba mentality is a mantra by Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace to him. But it's, when we look at a lot of the work and we look at the efforts in business and a lot of things in that, they're so synonymous with sports, right? Because it takes practice, it takes just hard work and just that effort to put in the type of work that's necessary to become the best part of yourself. And so when we think about that Mamba mentality, it's having that mentality to strive to be the best part of yourself. Really working hard and putting in all the effort to hone in on whatever your craft is, and really putting in that strong effort there. When you look at some of the greatest sports leaders out there, from Kobe Bryant to Michael Jordan and different ones out there, you always find one thing about them is that their work ethic is, far surpasses a lot of their peers around them. And that is what makes them great, is the amount of time, effort, and work that they put into honing their craft and just the overall drive and determination that they want to be the best. And to me, that's just something, mantra that every person, no matter what your profession is, no matter what your goals are, you can really strive to become the best part of yourself. And that's something we, look at here at Arcade. Helping those team members and individuals and companies strive to become the best, finding different ways that we can maximize the performance out of every individual team member, every team, the culture, everything around that is how do we look at the data and how can we create fun, incentivized ways to drive that performance and maximize the overall productivity amongst individual employees.
Hopefully your Dallas Cowboys can start living that Mamba mentality soon too.
I think they're struggling on that, and that is definitely a struggle there, but hopefully we can get to it. We may need to get Jerry Jones to hone in on that in order for that to start there. So,
all right, cool. Why don't you help me understand, always being an advocate for customer loyalty, and it's starting with employee engagement. Can you shed some light on how a culture of reward can reinforce customer loyalty and increase customer retention?
Yeah, absolutely. As we think about and we look at customer loyalty and customer retention, it all starts with your business. It all starts with the experience that those customers get when interacting with your business. And a lot of that comes from your employees, making sure that they're upholding the cultures and values that you instill within your business. And it really comes down to making sure those employees are engaged and have an effort in striving to provide that great customer experience. And when we think about that, it's really making sure that your employees are engaged, making sure that they're motivated throughout these different things. We've seen so many brands out there today that we look at that we know as the top brands for customer experience, whether that's ranging from Chick-fil-A to Southwest Airlines. People know that experience. And that experience all starts with how they're interacting with those frontline employees, the service and the quality that they get when making that purchase or having that experience. And, that comes from instilling that culture from the top down, making sure that employees are withholding and following the guidelines that you have in your business and making sure that they're providing those unique experiences. But in order to do that, you have to make sure your employees are engaged, making sure they're informed and knowing what the goals are and how to keep employees and how to keep customers really focused on that overall experience and providing that great experience with them. Creating different incentives, creating games around these type of things helps drive that culture, making sure that you're continuously reinforcing it throughout the day and throughout the month and throughout the periods of time within those employees. And that's something that we see as a great starting point when customers and brands are trying to build that great user experience and that great customer experiences. You have to make sure your team members are withholding that. And it's just all about keeping them focused, keeping them engaged, and knowing the core values that they're trying to instill with that, and then reinforcing that over and over again, and continuously creating ways that they can reinforce that type of information.
Let's go a bit deeper on that, on the topic of creating an engaging work culture. Would love to hear your thoughts on how to build a motivated sales culture that not only boosts productivity of your customer facing teams, but also ultimately improves that customer experience.
Yeah, when we look at it, it all starts with the KPIs, right? Really understanding what the outcome that you want in your business, and then kind of leading that back to reinforcing the behaviors that you want within that culture and those teams. And the way we look at that here at Arcade is we really focus on micro incentives, creating contests and creating ways that we can spiff and incentivize reps for withholding those different values and creating those different experiences that you want within your company. And when we think about that micro incentives and you think about contests, those are always great ways that you really drive a fun culture in your workforce, making work fun, and creating a motivating environment within that. And when you think about these KPIs, it's like really as a business leader, you have to look at what are the actions and outcomes that you want. And sometimes that can mean simply as getting customer reviews. A lot of times the businesses are striving to have their employees ask for these reviews from customer experiences, and kind of reinforcing that. But at different times you look and you go, hey, guys, you're not asking for the reviews. We're not getting the number of reviews that we want each month. And a lot of times it comes from just team members forgetting and not doing that. By creating small games and incentives and contests around this, you can really uphold that where you create that level of competition, and really track those micro incentives to where you're rewarding team members for every day that they get a new review, and making that an incentive around that and tracking that data and really honing in on those KPIs and metrics there. Even when we look at going down to just revenue and we look at targets like that within a business, creating micro incentives and behaviors that lead to the outcomes that you want, and creating these fun contests, whether they're daily, weekly, monthly contests that really help strive and reinforce this motivation within your employees. And what we found is that when you have employees that are happy, when they're making work fun, and they're looking at the KPIs and metrics and not just looking at it as a big goal, but looking at it as a fun, actionable activity, you really start to see tremendous results within your organization. And that's something that we really like to see. And that's something that we've seen across the board when team members use Arcade and really start to create these different KPIs and micro incentives and games that really foster that culture and that environment within there. And when we think about these rewards and these incentives, these aren't necessarily just monetary incentives. These can be simply recognition. Every team member is motivated in different ways. Some people are motivated by the money side of things, and some people are motivated by just wanting to be recognized for the behaviors and actions that they're doing. And that's something that we've implemented. And what really helps drive the performance within our SDR and BDR teams is that it's a daily contest for them. Every day that they're making calls, every day that they're doing these actions, it becomes a contest where they're seeing the leaderboard on who's the top performer for that day. And even at times when they don't hit that goal for that day, we also have another incentive and within that same KPI that's measured on a weekly basis. So, you may have that rep who just has a bad day, but they're able to make up the difference, in a couple of different days to be able to hit that target for the week.
So it's really, your view on the micro incentives is, incentivize the behavior to allow for the desired outcome for the business.
Absolutely.
So that's a great way to look at things. I think that's something that whether you're a wireless dealer, a sales leader in other industries, I think that's a very relevant topic of, focus on the big picture, but kind of chunk it down into bite-sized pieces where, the reps and your team are really focused on the right activities to drive the outcomes.
Yep.
Let's go.
Exactly. And that's really what it's about, focusing on those right activities. And, even as you think about things, in a lot of your inside sales teams and different sales organizations, sometimes the data becomes a big piece, right? making sure that the team members are enriching the data. That alone is a KPI and game and incentive that you can run, is that each time they update a record, each time they get a quality verified email or whatever that contact information may be, there's an incentive around that. And that's how we look at it, is motivating the actions that lead to the outcomes of your business and KPI goals.
You highlighted one example from a customer that was focused on driving more surveys. Do you have any other examples of how your customers have used Arcade to really drive other results?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, as we think about the frontline retail sales, particularly in the wireless space, right now, we just actually did a webinar the other week around running holiday contests. So many different retailers right now are focused on pushing a lot of their products and a lot of different incentives that they have going on for end of the year. This is a hot time where consumers are out there in the market making purchases and really being able to capitalize on that. And so we've had several people that were able to create these holiday games and really make them fun, where we kind of theme it around, reindeer games, 12 days of Christmas type of way of looking at that, where there's 12 days of an actual behavior where maybe you want to move a particular product, like let's say maybe the Samsung Galaxy or something like that, or a particular phone, where these reps, and we had one where they created that as a daily game where the activities are around that, and they kind of spiff the reps on a higher amount for every single one of those they sold per day. Now, obviously for the business, that was a key thing in a product that they wanted to move based on inventory. And they were really able to accomplish that goal where they exceeded their store sales across 6 different locations by simply having that game built around that, but also making it fun and kind of in theme with what's going on now in this current time period when we think about the holidays. And so running little games like that, we've seen really help move the needle. And so that's something you can do, just really based on a particular product and inventory number there. And that's what a lot of our clients are doing as they increase that and tracking where they're hitting those goals and hitting those targets, and they're seeing performance for individuals just exceed and get higher and higher as they look at those leaderboards and they get competitive with each other.
That's really cool. Really great example. Frontline teams, whether it's in retail, in auto, and other industries, tend to have a very unique insight into their local customer base. How can we as sales leaders implement an internal feedback loop so that our customer facing teams are able to regularly update us about what's happening at the ground level?
Yeah. That's a good question, Scott. And that's a constant challenge as sales leaders as you look at that, is like, how do you kind of create that feedback loop? And some of the successes that we've seen in the way that we really approach this is, as a sales leader, being specific with your team about what you're trying to know, right? Really helping establish to your frontline sales teams specific details about what you're looking for, specific measurements. Try not to do too many different things. Whether you're trying to get feedback about a particular product or a particular experience that a customer may have, hone in on what that is. Arm your team with specific details that you want to know, and allow them to go, allow a period of time where you're going to measure that, whether it be a week or 30 days, that you're asking a specific measurement you want them to give details about, and then provide a full loop around that. I think that as you ask these team members different questions and they provide this feedback, one of the key things is taking that information, implementing and making some type of change, or providing some type of feedback or loop around back to them as far as what you're doing with that information and how that information is going to help pivot your business or help improve certain processes. I think that's a key thing, is communication and providing feedback back to those team members as far as what you're doing with the info that they're giving you. That way they understand the why behind it, and they're not just doing what you ask, but they understand why you're doing that, and then they can kind of see how that makes improvements amongst your organization and amongst your company.
That's a great answer. And so, in your experience, what has worked best to communicate that back to the front line? They're pushing the feedback up the chain. How have you as a sales leader pushed kind of the feedback back down to help them understand what's been done?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll take it, for example, our organization itself, and looking at our team. Even when we think about the sales process that our customers they go through, and our reps are continuously talking with these customers and providing feedback about the product and certain features and certain things that comes up a lot during a presentation or during a demo. As they gather this information, we're able to understand the quality of that. In particular, we have, as we work with several different business units, we have a chat built into the arcade platform that allows for team members to communicate across just like they would in a lot of other chats like Slack or Microsoft Teams. And one of the biggest things we saw throughout our sales process is a lot of companies, already had a chat solution rolled out in their business. So being able to look at this and roll out Arcade to look at something where they have to replace their chat communication, became kind of a sticky point where, it kind of held up a little of that process and slowed down that sales cycle around that. So we kind of looked into that. And one of the things we went back to our product team, discussed it, and we ended up developing an integration where we can actually push our data directly into Microsoft Teams and Slack. And so being able to roll out something like that and being able to do a project like that, which is, built directly on the feedback coming from our frontline sales teams. And knowing that, hey, here's where I'm having challenges. Here's one of the objectives that we're getting throughout our sales experience is, teams and companies don't want to have to remove a particular communication channel that they have. So rather than forcing them to be on that, we look at it and says, well, let's just go where they're already at. Let's go where they're already communicating and let's push data and communication directly into that. And so I think that's one way that we see that. And I think in any company, as you constantly evolve and you're creating that unique product or you're creating a great user experience, it's all about gathering that feedback directly from your teams. And then whether it be from product development or just overall process change, implementing and rolling that out and then providing that to them. And our team was really excited and motivated that they were the cause of us creating an entirely new product line that's developing an initiative around our company and business, and then able to see the results and the outcome of that, which are still continuously happening. But that was all driven through the feedback coming from our frontline sales teams.
Yeah, I think any tech company has to rely on their sales team quite a bit to understand really what's going on in the market and what some of those roadblocks are to closing some deals. And I think even, when I think of Statflo, there's some examples from, our customers frontline and them providing feedback around, hey, here's what customers are saying or not saying when they're interacting with them through one-to-one text.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll even look at, from our customer standpoint as well. Here at Arcade, we're collecting a lot of data about organizations, and we're able to, gamify that data, track the results of how that impacts their business. And one of the key things that we've gotten from a lot of our customers is really providing insight to a lot of that data. And so one of the initiatives that our team is working on now is as we collect data across several different organizations, different business units, we're able to provide best practices that maybe you can take from a SaaS company or maybe you take from a different industry that other retailers or other industries can understand and see, here's how others are doing this, here's how they're taking this feedback and data points, and here's how it's impacting their business. So, that's one thing that we're doing is collecting a lot of data, providing analytics and best practices back to our clients so they can have ideas and different ways that they can think about being innovative and creative around how they're moving the needle in their business. And this, again, that was driven through customer feedback. Having that open loop there where customers are able to have requests working with their success managers and those success managers being advocates of the customers. That's one thing that we pride ourselves on and that I really hold true with our success team is that, look, you guys are the customer advocates. Your job is to go to battle and go fight for what these customers need, what they want to see improve, and how we can make that better for them and how we can continuously improve our product to be the best overall to meet the needs for them.
It's almost bang on to the Statflo story the last number of years. And our adoption and stickiness really shot forward when we had the data to back up the numbers and really worked with our customers and had them treat us as trusted advisors to help them grow their business versus just us trying to sell our wares. And I think that was the inflection point for us as a company a couple of years ago when we had all the data to back up what we had been telling our customers or prospects, and then working with our customers and prospects saying, okay, how do we leverage all this? and help you earn a lot more money or retain more customers, whatever the problem of the month was, and really ensure that they were part of their business versus just kind of being this other vendor that they're trying to deal with. So
Yeah.
it's, so you talk about processes and customer engagement. How do you think sales leaders should build that customer engagement process that, isn't perceived as a chore by the front line, but really seen as a sales enablement that's going to help themselves and their teams?
Yeah, I think that's where, as I mentioned kind of earlier about the ability to create games around certain action behaviors, around things like data enrichment or just logging or documenting certain things that you may need to have within your sales and overall customer experience process. Um, I think as you communication is important, giving the why, that's a big thing I'm big on is as I talk to my team and tell them certain tasks, it's not just telling them to do it because I'm saying to do it, but there's a why behind it. And I think as a leader, it's important to communicate that the why and how what you're asking them to do, how that impacts and how that information is being utilized throughout that. And so you can create games that are just simple things as far as data entry or tracking certain metrics or updating certain things within your systems and creating different games and incentives around that. That, hey, if you update this stuff, if you're going to close a deal or if you're going to get a customer. If you have not done this action, then it doesn't necessarily count, right? You may get commission, but hey, there may be an extra bonus that you can get if you've discovered this question. If you ask maybe a certain particular thing about your product or whatever it may be. Those are ways that we see it really helping kind of drive that. And where, it doesn't become a chore, it becomes kind of a necessary that, hey, these are all integral parts in helping us accelerate the growth of our business or helping us accelerate the overall customer experience.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Just, again, going micro and make sure they're focused on the right stuff. What's your take on creating a personalized customer experience, even with the major shift to digital channels in this COVID era?
Yeah, I think number one is something that you have to do, right? The unique customer experience is vital to your business. And in my opinion, as you create those unique experiences, they become great content and great assets to help in your digital footprint out there, right? They help create and help build that exposure and help really give your marketing department content that they can help shed light on. One of our coworkers here, we were talking the other day about, again, I always talk about Chick-fil-A and that overall experience. Recently, they did a commercial where they had Ellie, the golden retriever, who during COVID, they had a guy who would come to a Chick-fil-A, and obviously because of COVID and the level of interaction you have, he would send his golden retriever off to the Chick-fil-A rep. They would hand him the bag, the golden retriever would bring it back. That experience in itself, they then turned into a national commercial that highlight that brand. And so it's things like that that you're seeing ways that you're taking these unique experiences where that particular store, that particular frontline rep, kind of knew what to do and kind of went along with it of giving that dog that bag. And it became an experience every single time, which now becomes great content for your marketing team to really build a lot of that hype on these digital channels. So for me, as I look at it, is those unique customer experience really help broaden and help expand upon what already is happening in the digital channels and really finding unique and creative ways that you're helping your brand stand out and how you're pivoting to the changing times that we're all experiencing today and being unique about that. And I think that's the differentiator with a lot of businesses is how are you going to take what challenges we get thrown in front of us and create new product lines, unique experiences around all of that. And I think we've seen that happen during COVID with a lot of different companies out there who are now were forced to have to create unique product ideas and unique ways in their business, and then all of a sudden they're realizing, wow, this is actually very profitable, this is very successful, and it becomes a unit. But sometimes it is economic changes that force us as leaders to have to reevaluate our approach and how we're doing that. But I think those unique experience in itself with those customers become great ways in helping you identify some of these in a more rapid way.
That's I love that summary. I think it's you nailed it around, how do you leverage those stories to sell what Arcade or Statflo or Chick-fil-A, whoever it is, to sell the value of those brands. I think we've relied heavily on our customers to be our biggest advocates. You'll see on our website we have a whole whack of different testimonials, case studies, etc. And I think that's the way to really, for us, that's been the way to really win over future customers as well as existing customers, of letting our customers speak on our behalf versus us just talking. So I think that's really cool, and really make sure that's catered to that personalized experience.
Yeah, another thing, example I give is actually with a customer of ours. So obviously with the arcade platform, we're gamifying the different data and incentives around these frontline workers. And as they start to accumulate what we call tokens, which is essentially a value amount that they have associated to them, these individual reps now have the ability to save up their tokens, save up all their incentives, and be able to spend them and make purchases how they want. Whether they're going online to our rewards market store where they can make purchases over thousands of gifts that they can buy instantly, you're giving the power to those frontline workers that let them purchase what they want. They all have individual goals. And we actually had a rep about a year ago who saved up all their tokens and took their family on a vacation to Disney World. And that experience alone was that. And that really, for the frontline managers, the owners of this business, they were really touched by that experience, that this rep was able to save up from all the different action behaviors they did every single day. And they were able to take that hard work that they did and turn it into a memorable experience for him and their family to be able to go on this trip, took pictures and everything there. And so it's things like that I think that as we think about customer experience from our standpoint, another great way that just, drives joy for us and our team, where we're able to see that, where these team members are able to fulfill dreams and just goals of theirs that they want to fulfill by, setting these targets and setting it out and just striving to hit that.
I think that's a great way to finish this this conversation off. Before we sign off here, where can the folks that are listening to this find you, and if they want to connect?
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, you can find us to contact Arcade. We're at www.arcade.co. That's arcade.co. As well as you can find me on LinkedIn. It is Andre-Riley. That's Andre-Riley. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. More than happy to meet with anyone out there who wants to kind of learn a little bit ways of how they can drive engagement within their team. And ways that they can help increase KPIs within an organization. Love to speak with them, just really bounce ideas off with them and really give them success stories that we're seeing across our clients and how we're helping our team alone hit some of these initiatives as well.
That's awesome. This is super insightful for me, Andre. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely, Scott. Thank you guys for having me. Really enjoyed this.
As always, thanks for tuning in. If you're a fan of One-to-One, be sure to give us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. Catch you next time.